Smile, everyone.
This is Patriot Sentinel, where truth doesn't whisper, it roars. Hosted by Richard Tortorello, we're cutting through the noise to talk government, politics, fairness, the Constitution, community, and God. Stand up, speak out. The watch begins now.
And welcome back to this episode of the Editor's Roundtable. I have with me Ben Fenwick, former editor of the Norman Transcript, and Patrick NcGuigan, former editor of the Oklahoman Opinion Editorial. And you run two news sites now, Pat. We'll get to that in a moment. But I wanted to have a discussion about last week's news. Pat and I went on a field trip to D.C. I went to the RNC, and he had a whole fun-filled week interviewing people and visiting the National Press Club. And I want to go and go to Pat. Pat, you had an opportunity to sit with Josh Burkeem, Representative Burkeem. Tell us a little more about that conversation.
It was a very good exchange of a couple of friends and a journalist and a politician who really in his heart has always remained a private citizen. But I'm going to have to glance over at my notes. We talked about the shutdown, and of course that had just come to an end, and he had some interesting perspectives on it. He hopes that this will be the predicate for the beginning of addressing healthcare reform financing in a more effective, cost-effective way, because one of the criticisms of the ACA conservatives have consistently made is that it just spiraled up the costs of the system and the margins for hospitals. And you know about hidden costs, and that's something that actually both Biden and Trump have in their own separate ways tried to address.
Right.
As for the politics of the end of the shutdown, he says it's far too early to tell, and he thinks in the long run there'll be more of a net benefit than appears apparent now for the conservative side because of that effort to bring costs under control. He also talked about the most disappointing thing to him has been that the level of debt and underlying, spiraling cost of government is even worse than he really thought. And he was glad they were able to do a few things to address that. On the flip side, he's expressed gratitude and appreciation for his colleagues in the House Freedom Caucus, because he feels like by being part of that, he's able to actually impact, and they were able to impact the outcome, despite some, concerns about some of the spending that the president was willing to accept. So that's a thumbnail of that. Burkeem I've always found to be very candid and very open. He did express concern very specifically about the animus and the depth of anger and fury across the aisle. And I know for a fact he has some cordial relationships with people that he doesn't agree with. But that's kind of tough to maintain in the atmosphere there is right now in Congress. And of course, we just see multiple examples of that. So that was my best experience in DC, but there were others. Maybe down the line we can talk about HBOT therapy.
Right.
And that'll be a very interesting conversation because of a new documentary film that's out on that issue.
Right. Hey, Ben, I want to throw it back to you. The
Sure.
government shutdown. I know that you do some freelance work. Did you write or have any conversations about the government shutdown affecting Norman, Oklahoma specifically?
Well, not specific. Well, affecting Oklahoma, yeah, I have been. In fact, I'm preparing a story right now for Oklahoma Watch, and we've been looking at, we have a series on evictions, and what this is going to cause is for evictions to tick up in December more than they would, and there's real human misery behind this. Um, you're talking about people that if they're in eviction court, there's some things that went wrong, and usually a chain of things that went wrong. I was interviewing a young woman yesterday. Well, no, it was this week, and she had a good job, but then the childcare subsidies were cut, and this has been posted on the government's website, and it's on the Oklahoman's website, or the Oklahoma website, the state of Oklahoma. And so she didn't have childcare, so she had to stay home with the kids. So then she lost her job. So boom, what do you know? She said she could get the money. She went to got a couple of other jobs because the subsidies, I think, have started again. And what do you know? She's still in eviction court and just about lost her
Mm,
place to live. And we're talking. She goes, "I was almost homeless," and so that was one person. And we're talking. This is across the state, and there are going to be hundreds, thousands that are going to go through this kind of thing. And we're talking about people that I talked to one woman. She was $100 short on her rent, $100, and for that she ends up in eviction court and is going to lose her place to live. And it's and there are kids, there are people that don't deserve it, and it's just
mm-mm.
it's just it's just how it's going to shake down.
That's an awful thing to go through. I mean, we hear a lot of stories. I know Pat and I wrote stories for the city Sentinel site, City News Oklahoma City site, about the shutdown, and a lot of folks around the nation, and we only care. We feel for the people around the nation, but here in our hometown, Oklahoma, Norman, Oklahoma City, we know a lot of folks that were on the edge of losing everything and may have lost a lot of things. Now, with the government as it is, Pat, you've done a lot of writing on this. What is the issue? Why can't our elected officials work together on behalf of the American people? Congress still gets a paycheck. The active duty guys still receive their paycheck, but we're at risk of not receiving their mid-month paycheck last month. So what is the issue with our congressional delegation, if there is, and in relation to the federal government, aren't they supposed to work on our behalf?
I think what's going on is that the areas of allowable, and that allowable I put in quotes, air quotes, allowable disagreement on issues that are significant and where there needs to be
Mm,
discussion and gnawing the bone a little bit for a while, those areas have narrowed. You're not allowed to be a conservative Republican who's anti-death penalty, which I am and have been for many years. And of course, I am allowed. It's a free society. I can choose to believe what I wish and act
mhm.
accordingly. So, as a newsman and a commentator, both, I've been in that place for some years now. But I remember when I was pro death penalty before, about 10, 12 years ago, and not allowing diversity of views within the conservative community and within the liberal community is leading us to this whole cancel culture thing. Now, when it comes to issues like how much help the government can give or should give to prevent things like people not having sufficient resources to just do the basics of life, it's going to require a lot of work for a long time. And the first thing we have to do is start talking to each other, because
Right.
there's groups like the Independence Institute, the Cato Institute, and others have brought some very caring individuals to bear um, out in the Northwest. The Discovery Institute, I just remember the name of that group, have brought very caring people together to come up with ideas that are um, more responsive to the underlying issues that might cause an eviction. But you don't hear much about that. Even here in Oklahoma City, we've kind of bought into well, there needs to be a government solution to this. But
Right.
that's, in the long term, that's not going to be adequate in any case to solve the problems.
Absolutely. Now, Ben, you covered the city of Norman extensively as editor. Do you see
Sure.
similarities with city government versus state versus, in this instant, the federal government? Do you think the city council works well together to address the needs of the individuals and the citizens?
Well, that's very interesting. I recently am a graduate of Citizens Academy in Norman. So I went through their, I think it's a 16-week process, something like that, where you go and the city kind of shows you around, and they'll show you their the new water treatment system they have in, or they'll take you to the new emergency 911 call center, or that kind of a thing. And we had, I believe, the city clerk, and she spoke to us all, and she said that Norman's city council is by charter, I believe, a nonpartisan council.
Yeah.
So it's not supposed to be Democrat, it's not supposed to be Republican or anything like that. And she said there's a big problem here because there is a partisan split on the council now, and it's getting harder and harder to govern. And I'm like, oh, really? Well, wow, and I mean, I won't say it was news to me. I mean, it's not there. It's there, and you can see it now pretty clearly. And there's backbiting that goes on that's getting probably a little worse. People are being, canceled to resign, and it's happening. So it is partisan. And I'm not sure if that just is a mirror of the nation, or if it's just across if there's some algorithm that's doing this to everybody because they're all on Facebook. I give up. I mean, it seems to be, I suspect it is. I suspect that.
Well, I can say with 100% certainty that you did great reporting. I think you were fair and balanced. I mean, so you wrote good
Thank you.
stories. When Mindy Woods was a writer, I thought she wrote fair and balanced stories, and so did you. And so I really appreciate how you covered city council and my time on council. But you're right, there is a political partisan divide that shouldn't be there. And if you recall, I kind of led myself down the middle, center right, in working with six board member 6 and 7 and 8 was where we can find common ground, because even though they were center left, it's easier to work in the center with center right left to get the things done, because we need 5 votes to get things done. And we got a lot of things done in our term on council. I can say that this was probably the most productive council during my time. But we did have the partisan divide, and there's a reason that we had to remain nonpartisan. Obviously, it's the issue: road, streets, water, garbage, turnpike, TIF. That's all they want. All they want is to be heard. Okay. And if we can't work together, look, me, I'm going to be honest and candid with you. I kept myself down the middle and looked out for Ward 5, and then Ward 5 City of Norman, and then City Norman, in that order. It was always a priority to look at the constituents and listen to their voice. And I think I did a pretty good job at listening to their needs, especially when it came to the turnpike. Now, I bring up the turnpike fight because this is the same similarities that we have in Congress, where they were deadlocked on the budget and how we go forward for 48 days. But we never had that problem in Norman because, we addressed the issue. We didn't agree, but our binding resolution on the turnpike from my last session is still in place. Every resolution they tried failed. That one that we wrote is still in place. Ben, in Norman last week, I was reading that there are a couple of controversial planning zoning issues. Let's start with: are you familiar with the non-related no more than 3 people in a house ordinance? And what do you hear about that?
Are you talking to me? No, I would
Yes.
say I have not been following that particular thing, but it's going to be that's going to be an interesting ordinance that's not going to get passed. I suspect strongly. That
You think
sounds
that
rather extreme.
you think they're gonna strike it down? Is that what you meant? They're
I
gonna strike
can't
it down?
imagine. How could they not? We have it's first of all, I mean, if I'm going to ask some questions, who proposed it?
It was a 1956 ordinance. The
Oh,
idea was
really?
to strike it down and get rid of it because look, Pat, okay, I'm a big private property rights advocate. Okay,
Right.
and this smacks with the ideology that who am I to tell you how many people you can have in your house? All right. If you follow the law, there's not cars coming and going, you're being a good neighbor, who would know? So somebody brought it up. And as a conservative on council, I would have to fall back on private property rights, Pat. This is nobody's business. Now, if you live in an HOA, totally different. You signed up, you have to follow the covenants. But in Ward 5, Ward 1, Core Norman, where they don't have HOAs, is it really an issue constitutionally, Pat? I mean, you're the guy to have an ordinance that prohibits how many people are in a house if they're unrelated.
I think that what you're going to see is both because of the economy, there's already natural pressure growing to do something that's actually kind of positive, I believe, in the long term, and that's multi generational households where uh, and people, the data shows that people want to be able to stay in their home. Well, over time, their home might become, before they have to go to a care center,
Right.
uh, might be more likely to become living with their children or with even their grandchildren. And then, of course, we had this program when I was active with the Oklahoma City Public Schools Foundation, and it was a program I respected and admired. Grandparents as teachers, to get grandparents in the classroom some to read to all the kids, not just their grandchildren. Um, Part of our issue these days is that we think government should do things that I believe should be done by our ameliorating institutions, our intermediary institutions,
Mm-hmm.
beginning with not only the family, but with our churches and with other things that don't necessarily grow government. But the more we grow government and the private sector comparatively shrinks, the more that we have these pressures arise on families to remain intact and have multi generational households. And I have, uh, I was telling Rashar before the program that most of my cousins that are not citizens of the United States are citizens of Canada. And we really don't have a lot of differences among us in terms of our underlying core belief systems, but we're in
Mm-hmm.
political environments that
Right.
seem to exaggerate. And again, that sphere of what you can be okay and disagree on is getting smaller and smaller. And that's somehow we have to evolve away from that because it's the only way
Absolutely.
to have real discussions. If you can't share your
Absolutely.
heart without being worried that you're going to get canceled, well, then you're not going to share your heart. And then you're not going to have Tom Coburn, Barack Obama type friendships anymore, you know,
Well, I'll tell you one
which
thing.
was not all that rare in the old days and still existed as recently as a little more than a decade ago.
Don't bring up these topics during Thanksgiving dinner. You'll be canceled this week. So go back to Ben. Norman's got some pretty good stories. So Ben, are you following the two stories? The OU professor who was picked up by ICE yesterday and released
I have been.
tonight or
Yes,
last
I
night.
have been.
So what's going on with that? Have you got a chance to speak to OU about that? Have you got a
No, I
chance to
haven't.
speak to the?
I checked in with the New York Times, and they already had someone covering it. They're going to have me cover something else next week. So, but what I would say is this: what I do know about it is I know Josh Landis and his wife Minar, and she's from the Middle East originally, and he's a famous Middle Eastern scholar, and they raised the alarm when it happened, and um, and he's been released, and so the fact that he's been released, it's of course it's a relief, but he said it was very distressing to be held.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a guy who is a professor at a university. This man is not, he is not, a Middle Eastern terrorist. He's, um, I don't know how well to pronounce his last name. I'm afraid of butchering it, but it's Ferranza or something like that. And and I believe it's been suggested by a friend of mine that he's probably related to a well-known family here locally. You know, we have well-known families that have been here for generations, like the
Right.
Shadids and stuff like that. And and he's one of them. And this is incredibly alarming. This is the kind of stuff, a guy that's actually got his visa. He is being a law abiding person. He is ably employed at the university. He's here to share his scholarship with people that need to know stuff about the Middle East. Almost certainly there are people who are in the military profession and stuff like that that would have to attend a class like that where they're going to have to learn about stuff like Iran. So we
Right.
need to know what's going on there. It's a shocking thing that this would have happened here, and it is somebody got too big of a hammer and they think everything looks like a nail, and
Exactly.
it's going to have to be handled much differently. But I mean, I look at this, and oh, I mean, these are the times we're in. I kind of wonder if this and all the partisanship we've been talking about, all this, the split on the council, or for that matter, in the whole nation, if it's some
Right.
kind of a fever and when it's going to break. That's what I wonder. And what it's going to look like when it breaks. Is it going to break like a boil opening up, or is it just finally we're all going to break a big sweat and cool off and it's going to be okay? You know?
Time will tell on that. Time will tell on that. So hopefully, in the days coming, whoever interviews this guy here will get to the bottom of it. And you're right. So he was picked up. He was released. That's a good thing. But who would want to go through the ordeal of being detained by ICE? In today's climate, everybody who is detained by ICE is illegal or terrorist. And so the stress would be
Well,
enormous to the family. Pat, what were we saying?
let me just interject something. I mean, I've spent the last about 12 years of my life, since roughly the midpoint of the Obama administration and on, so a little longer than 12 years actually,
Right.
watching and experiencing vicariously through friends really qualified, righteous, dignified persons, in some cases minorities who hold a worldview pretty similar to mine, conservative.
Hmm.
I've watched them get whatever we want to call it, DEI'd or canceled. In one particular case, a guy that was hired for a tenure track position in a southern state, really more of a libertarian conservative, and he got run off. And he got run off because he had nuanced views. He's more pro-life than not. He's very sensitive to individuality and to people's aspirations, which don't fit into any kind of an ethnic cubbyhole. We're all different and we all have different things that motivate us and drive us. So I have some ambivalence and take great care in addressing some of these issues. This person, it sounds pretty clear, was mistreated by the federal government for a time. And so hopefully things will work out. But I have friends that it never worked out for. They're gone. They're no longer in tenured positions. And that's not particularly shocking because their worldview was similar to mine. And I went through a time in graduate school where I had a professor I had earned an A from, who then wanted to flunk me because in a historiography class, I defended the historical accuracy of the conversion of Constantine. Well, gosh, what's Pat talking about here? Well, I'm talking about I reached, I concluded a minority view among modern historians who tend to be cynical about faith and belief. But everything I could find, searching the oldest original sources, I concluded he had become a Christian, i.e., a Catholic. And of course, that transformed the world when he made Christianity the religion of the Roman Empire. Well, I was told to my face in front of my colleagues in this historiography class that he was going to flunk me. Now, guys, listen to this. You know how that got turned around? I told my committee, ultimately, I told my committee at Oklahoma State, look, I've started to get a little bit of notoriety. I'm getting printed all over the state in little community newspapers. And I assure you that I will not only not flunk, I decided to compromise. I told him, I said, I will get at least a B. And if I don't, I will scream about this from the mountaintops for years to come. I got a B. And this professor went from wanting to flunk me to wanting to get to being willing to give me a B in order to avoid what would have happened. Now, that should not be necessary. That should
True.
not be necessary in a free country with protections for free speech. And so I'm glad that things worked out for this man at OU. But I have conservative friends, libertarian friends all over the country that it not only did not work out for, but they don't have jobs today that are in the
True.
field that they loved. Something is really terribly off kilter about where
And
we are
hopefully, and
culturally.
hopefully, the three of us can solve that. But we're close to the half hour mark, and I want to thank both of you guys for coming on. This is a new segment that hopefully we'll do every week, talking about the local news. So I want to throw it to Ben. Are you thankful? We have Thanksgiving in 2 days. Um, I really, I have to say, in the local market, I really enjoyed your writing. I enjoyed your reporting,
Well, thank you.
and I didn't know you were a constituent at the time, but like I told everyone when I came on council, you're all my constituent, regardless of which ward you're in. Um, what are you thankful this year? It's been a long year, and we woke up, summer happened, and it's Thanksgiving and the end of the year already. So the Fenwick family, what are you guys thankful for this year?
I'm thankful. I'm thankful. I'm thankful my wife is a really, really good teacher, and 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 that she is continuing to apply her trade. And I'm really thankful to be able to continue to apply my trade, and enjoy just being a writer. I just love it. It's what I eat up. And I'm also thankful to live in Ward 5 and have a nice little place out here in the country. And I'm thankful for my new chickens and all those kinds of things that go with it.
Did you have a turkey on the farm, or did you buy it from the store? Was he from the
I
backyard?
got my turkey at Walmart, just like like most people. If we raised the turkey, it would be a pet. I don't think we could ever eat it. It's our chickens are for eggs.
Pat, I know you've gone through a lot. Your family, I mean, you and I. This last year has been very, very troubling, and we worked so hard. I know you guys are faithful Catholics. What are you and Pam thankful for this year?
Well, I'm thankful for her and for our faith and for the traditions of our faith. And I definitely, one of the things that, reflecting back to some of the earlier conversation about these divisions, I'm absolutely four square in support of the corpus, the body of teachings of the Roman Catholic Church. So I'm thankful for Pam and her support, which is stressed at times because of the economics of contemporary journalism. On the flip side, I'm very grateful for a woman named Darla Sheldon, who reports for my Capital Beat OK, and in the past has reported for our city news, because she's a pretty good balance for Pat NcGuigan, because she has a more progressive or liberal point of view. But by the way, we like to watch together. Darla and I like to watch together The Diplomat. I don't know if either of you are familiar with that
I've watched it.
that program. It's an unbelievably effectively done left of center programming. Um, that deals with like an inversion of where we are now. They imagine a reality where it's more like the West Wing that used to be on television, a very liberal
Uh,
presidency. And so those are the things I'm thankful for. I could go on for quite a while. Years ago, I wrote a piece called Meeting Jesus Along the Way. And I still feel blessed that I'm able to do that, to meet people who at least reach for what Jesus stands for.
Right.
And
Right.
they're a pretty diverse group.
It is. I'm going to say I'm thankful for my friendship with you, Pat, your mentorship um, in this business we call journalism. And Ben, you're too as well. I consider you part of this group now. Is that never in my wildest dreams would I be running two newspapers, credentialed member of the White House press corps, traveling back and forth. I almost had Zoran in an interview, but because the class I was in at the RNC did not apply to be in the in town pool press part in the Oval Office, it would have been awesome
oh,
because this is history making. We lost Marjorie Taylor Greene, but we gained Zoran Madami, and that's for good or worse. Our country is changing, and I think it's always for the better. So I give thanks for the people around me, for Nicole, for my family, for the opportunity to do this. And I want to thank you guys for coming on, and we will continue this conversation next week. Next up on the call tonight, Steve Luff and I discuss the temporary protected status program that Donald Trump wants to terminate regarding the Somalis, which will be a blockbuster, exciting conversation. That's next up on the lineup tonight. So I want to thank you guys for showing up tonight. And I want to thank our viewers for this segment of the Editors Roundtable. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks.
see you then.